Last time, Maya Sinclair sat in her attorney's office at 9:15 in the morning and watched Sandra Cole file the papers that set everything in motion. The forensic investigation had uncovered two concealed financial entities. A document altered after Maya had signed it. A co-conspirator who shared an office building with her husband and a company with her husband's money. The filing had landed at 10 o'clock. Daniel had received the call at 10:30. And at 11:22, Maya's phone had rung, her mother's voice on the other end, careful, confused, trying to hold herself steady, while a man she had welcomed into her family sat in her living room, telling her a story about her own daughter. Maya had said, "Don't let him tell you the story. I'm coming." She was coming. And Daniel Sinclair, who had spent 4 years deciding that Maya was someone he could work around, was about to understand, fully, finally, and too late, exactly who he had underestimated. Before we go any further, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. This community keeps growing, and I want to know who's here, because the people who find Maya's story tend to be exactly the kind of people who need it, and I'm grateful for every single one of you. Her mother's name was Gloria. Gloria had raised Maya alone from the time Maya was 11 years old, after Maya's father left with a quietness that was somehow worse than a dramatic exit. Just a gradual disappearing, a slow withdrawal of presence until one morning he simply wasn't there anymore. Gloria had worked 2 jobs for 6 years without once allowing Maya to feel the full weight of what that cost her. She had sat at kitchen tables helping with homework she didn't always understand. She had shown up to every school event alone and made it look, by sheer force of dignity, like a choice rather than a circumstance. Maya had watched her mother do all of that. And she had decided, somewhere in the marrow of her adolescence, 2 things that had shaped everything that came after. 1, she would never be financially dependent on anyone in a way that left her without options. 2, nobody was going to walk into her mother's house and use Gloria against her. She drove the 20 minutes in 18. She didn't speed. She didn't call anyone. She simply drove with the focused calm of a woman who has already decided what she is walking into and what she is going to do when she gets there. Daniel's car was in the driveway. Maya sat in her own car for 30 seconds before going in. Not because she needed to steady herself, because she wanted to be precise about the version of herself she was bringing through that door, not the managed, composed housewife version, not the careful, measured version that had navigated 4 years of being overlooked. The real one. She walked in without knocking. It was her mother's house. She had never knocked, and found them in the kitchen exactly as she had imagined. Gloria at the counter with a mug of tea she clearly hadn't touched, sitting very straight in the way she sat when she was holding herself together. Daniel at the kitchen table, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, in the posture of a man who had been performing sincerity for 20 minutes. He looked up when Maya walked in. Something moved across his face, surprise, recalibration, and beneath both of those, the specific discomfort of a man whose plan has just shifted. He had expected to have more time. "Maya," he stood. "I just needed to talk to someone who—" "Sit down, Daniel." He sat. Not because he was accustomed to taking direction from her, because something in her voice, in that moment, was different from any version of her voice he had heard in 4 years of marriage. It was not loud. It was not shaking. It was the voice of someone who had arrived at a destination and was done traveling. Gloria looked at her daughter, and whatever she saw in Maya's face made her exhale, quietly, almost imperceptibly, with something that looked like relief. "I want you to hear this, Mom. Both of you." Maya sat down at the table. She did not take off her coat. She placed her bag on the chair beside her and looked at Daniel with a directness that, she could see, was costing him something to hold. "I know about DRS Capital. I know about Meridian Asset Group. I know about the document you altered after I signed it. I know about Vanessa Holt, and I know she is a co-founder on an entity that holds assets redirected from our marriage. I know about the data broker search you ran 3 years ago looking for my financial accounts. I know about the night you accessed my laptop. And I know that last night, at 11:47, you ran an inquiry on one of my private accounts." Silence. Daniel's expression had moved through several stations. Denial assembling itself, then collapsing, then something that might have been the beginning of genuine shock. My attorneys have all of it, Maya continued. My forensic investigator has all of it. The document alteration has been flagged to the relevant authorities. This is not a negotiation, Daniel. I am telling you what exists, so that you understand the position you are in. And I am telling you in front of my mother because you chose to come here and tell her your version of this story. So now she has mine. She looked at Gloria. He came here to make you doubt me, to get ahead of what's coming by making me look like the one who was hiding things. And I was hiding things, Mom. I had private accounts. I built something I didn't tell him about. But I built it because somewhere underneath everything, I knew I needed to. I knew long before I could say it out loud. Gloria reached across the table and put her hand over Maya's. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Daniel found his voice somewhere in the silence that followed. Maya, I know how this looks. I know what Sandra has put in front of you, and I understand why I want you to stop, Maya said. I want you to think very carefully about every word you say in this room right now. Because my mother is a witness to this conversation, and you are already in a position where your attorney has almost certainly told you to say as little as possible. So I am going to give you the same advice. Stop talking, go home, call your attorney, and let the process work the way it's going to work. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. The man who had talked over her for 4 years, who had carried on a 14-month affair, who had built a financial structure designed to redirect marital assets while she smiled at his family's dinner table, who had gone through her files and mirrored her research and altered a legal document, and then brought home takeout and told her stories about his colleagues, and believed through all of it that she didn't see. He looked at her like he was trying to find the Maya he had married. The warm one, the quiet one, the one who never needed anything. She was gone. She had never really been there. Go home, Daniel. He went. Gloria made fresh tea after he left. She moved around her small kitchen with the deliberate care of a woman who is processing something significant and has chosen, for the moment, to process it through the familiar motions of hospitality. She set a mug in front of Maya, sat down across from her, looked at her daughter for a long moment. $6 million, she said quietly. Maya looked up. He mentioned a number, before you came. He was trying to make it sound like you had stolen something. But I heard the number and I kept thinking, my daughter built $6 million, quietly, on her own, while running that man's entire life. Maya said nothing. Your father did the same thing to me, Gloria said. Not the money part, the other part, making me feel like I was lucky to be in the room, like I should be grateful for what he offered and not ask about what I was giving. She wrapped both hands around her mug. I used to wish I had done what you did, built something he couldn't touch. Mom, I'm not sad about it. I just want you to know that I understand why you did it, and I want you to know that I have never, not for 1 second, thought of you as just a housewife, even when that's what everyone else saw. Maya looked at her mother across the kitchen table of the house she had grown up in, and the composure she had carried through Sandra's office and Priya's office and the drive over and the conversation with Daniel, the composure she had built over years of deciding to be precise instead of falling apart, shifted, just slightly, just enough. She reached across the table and took her mother's hand. And for a few minutes, in Gloria's kitchen with the tea going cold between them, Maya Sinclair allowed herself to be 30 years old and someone's daughter and not entirely okay. Not in a way that undid anything. Just in the honest, necessary way of a person who has been holding something heavy for a very long time and has finally found a place safe enough to set it down for a moment. Before we continue, I want to stop here. Because that scene in Gloria's kitchen is the emotional center of everything Maya has been carrying. She built $6 million in silence, partly because she watched her mother have nothing. She protected herself financially because she watched what happened to a woman who didn't. And now her mother is sitting across from her saying, I see you. I always saw you. If that hit you somewhere real, tell me in the comments. Tell me what it brought up for you. I want to know. Sandra called at 2 o'clock. Daniel's attorney reached out within the hour, They want to talk about a voluntary disclosure and expedited settlement discussion. In plain terms, they're scared and they want to move fast before the fraud finding goes further up the chain. What do you recommend? I recommend we let them be scared for a little longer. We are not in a hurry, Maya. They are. That is exactly the position we want to be in. Maya understood negotiation. She had read enough about it, studied enough examples of it, to know that the worst thing you could do when the other side was panicking was to match their pace. Panic was a pressure that, if you didn't absorb it, would work entirely in your favor. What's the timeline if we let it sit? We have a preliminary hearing scheduled in 3 weeks. If Daniel's team wants to settle before that hearing, they have 3 weeks to come to us with something worth considering. If they don't, or if what they offer isn't serious, we go to the hearing and everything Priya and James have documented becomes part of the court record. And the fraud finding? That's already been referred to. That piece is out of our hands and in the hands of people who handle exactly this kind of financial misconduct. Our job now is to make sure your assets are fully protected and that the settlement, when it comes, reflects the full picture of what Daniel did and what you are owed. Maya nodded slowly, even though Sandra couldn't see her. 3 weeks, she said. 3 weeks, Sandra confirmed. Claire Osei called that evening. She had spent the day running updated valuations on every position in Sinclair Private Holdings, the full portfolio, current market values, growth projections on the early-stage equity stakes that Maya had identified years ago. And that were, Claire confirmed with a professional restraint that didn't fully conceal her impression, performing significantly above benchmark. The portfolio as of today's close, Claire said, 6.8 million. Maya had checked it herself that morning. But hearing Claire say it, a woman who had spent her career in rooms full of serious money and serious people, carried a different kind of weight. The 3 positions Daniel mirrored in DRS Capital, Claire continued. 2 of them have moved substantially since his entry point. He made money on your research, Maya. I want you to know that because I think it matters for how James frames the unjust enrichment argument. Unjust enrichment. It's a legal theory that says if someone benefits financially from something that belongs to you, your intellectual work, your research, your proprietary analysis, without your consent, they may be required to disgorge that benefit. Sandra and James are already building it. But the numbers Claire had just described gave it a very concrete foundation. Maya sat with that for a moment. He had taken her research, her years of quiet, disciplined, self-directed work, and he had made money from it. Thank you, Claire. There's one more thing. Maya waited. I did a broader search today, looking at entities connected to Vanessa Holt independently of Daniel, and I found something that I think you need to bring to Sandra immediately. What is it? Vanessa Holt has a third entity, nothing to do with Daniel, registered 2 years before Meridian, a small consulting LLC, and one of its disclosed clients, listed in a state filing, is a private equity firm. Claire paused. The same private equity firm that manages 2 of the funds Daniel told you he had no personal investment in. The implication assembled itself in Maya's mind with quiet, damaging clarity. Daniel had told her, at the beginning of their marriage, that he kept his personal investments entirely separate from his professional relationships to avoid conflicts of interest. She had believed him. She had built her own portfolio on the same principle. Clean lines, no conflicts, full transparency with herself about every position and every motivation. He had been lying about that too, for years, using Vanessa as an intermediary to hold positions he had told Maya didn't exist. Send me everything, Maya said. Tonight. 3 days passed. Maya returned to the house, their house, the one she had made into a home, to collect the remainder of her personal documents and the external hard drive she had already given Sandra a copy of. She had arranged with Sandra to do this while Daniel was at the office, accompanied by a friend named Diane who had known Maya since college and who showed up with a car and a thermos of coffee and the specific no-nonsense energy of a woman who has seen her friend through hard things before and intends to be useful. Diane did not ask a lot of questions. She carried boxes. She made practical observations. She said at one point, standing in the middle of Maya's home office and looking at the locked filing cabinet, "You know what I always thought about you, Maya? Even back in college?" "What?" That you were the most prepared person I had ever met. Like you were always ready for the thing that hadn't happened yet. Maya unlocked the cabinet, pulled the remaining files. I learned it from watching what happens to people who aren't. Diane nodded. She didn't press further. She picked up a box and carried it to the car. Daniel made contact on day 4. Not through his attorney. Through a text message that arrived at 7 in the morning while Maya was at her temporary apartment, a furnished 1-bedroom she had quietly secured 2 months ago, another piece of preparation that nobody had known about, drinking coffee and reviewing Claire's latest research. The message read, "I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything. I just want you to know that what I did, the financial stuff, it wasn't because I thought you were stupid. It was because I knew you were smarter than me and I was afraid of what that meant. I handled it the worst possible way. I'm sorry." Maya read it once, then again. She thought about it for a long time. Not because it changed anything. It didn't. It couldn't. Not with 2 fraudulent entities and an altered document and a forensic timeline that documented 4 years of deliberate deception. But because the thing Daniel had admitted, buried in those 2 sentences, was the thing she had always known and never been told directly. He knew. He had always known who she was. And instead of honoring it, he had been afraid of it. And instead of being honest about his fear, he had tried to get ahead of it. To find her accounts before she was ready. To take what he could. To build a structure that would protect him from the consequences of being with a woman who was, in every financial and intellectual sense, more capable than he was willing to admit. She put the phone down. She did not reply. There was nothing to say that her attorneys hadn't already said more precisely. The preliminary hearing was now 2 weeks away. Sandra had received that afternoon a formal settlement proposal from Daniel's legal team. She called Maya immediately after reading it. Her tone was measured, but Maya had learned to hear what lived beneath Sandra's measured tone. This time, beneath the professional calm, there was something that sounded almost like satisfaction. "They've come in with a number," Sandra said. "Tell me." "They're proposing a settlement that would give you the family home, a cash payment representing your share of the joint marital assets, and a waiver of any claim to the accounts in your name. No acknowledgement of the fraud. No disgorgement of the DRS Capital or Meridian assets. No unjust enrichment component." Maya said nothing. "It's not a serious offer," Sandra continued. "It's an opening position from a team that is hoping you want this to be over quickly. They are betting that 30 years old and going through this for the first time means you might take the first number that sounds significant just to be done with it." Maya looked out the window of her apartment. At a city full of people who had no idea who she was, or what she had built, or what was currently sitting on a conference room table with her name attached to it. "Send the counter," she said. "I'll need your parameters. Full disgorgement of DRS Capital and Meridian. Unjust enrichment calculation on the 3 mirrored positions based on James's current valuation, the house, and a formal written acknowledgement, in the settlement agreement itself, that the document he presented 14 months ago was materially altered after my signature was obtained." Sandra was quiet for a moment. "That last piece, the written acknowledgement, his team is going to resist that harder than the money." "I know," Maya said. "Send it anyway." And that is where things stood at the end of that week. Maya Sinclair, 30 years old, $6.8 million and growing, backed by a legal team that had been preparing this case with surgical precision, had sent a counteroffer that was not an escalation. It was a statement, a declaration of exactly what she knew and exactly what she was owed, and exactly how clearly she understood the position she was in. Daniel's team had 48 hours to respond before Sandra filed a motion that would make the full forensic record part of the public court file. 48 hours. And then, on the morning of hour 46, 2 hours before the deadline, something happened that nobody on Maya's team had anticipated. Vanessa Holt called Sandra's office, not Daniel's attorney, not a representative, Vanessa herself, asking for a meeting, saying she had information that Maya needed to hear, saying it wasn't about the money, saying it was about something Daniel had done that was bigger than any of it, and saying that she was sorry, that she had been sorry for a long time, and that she was ready to tell the truth. That is the end of part 4 of They Thought She Was Just a Housewife Until Her Fortune Was Revealed. And I need you to sit with that for a moment. Because Vanessa Holt, the woman at the center of the affair, the co-founder of the entity built with Maya's redirected assets, the person who has been on the other side of this story from the beginning, just called Maya's attorney. Not to fight, to talk, to tell the truth about something bigger. What does she know? What did Daniel do that is larger than the fraud? Larger than the affair? Larger than everything Maya has already uncovered? And is Vanessa someone Maya can trust? Or is this one more move in a game that Maya hasn't fully mapped yet? Tell me what you think in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you think this is going. Like this video. Subscribe to Underestimated Saga so part 5 comes straight to you the moment it drops. Share this with someone who needs Maya's story right now, because we are getting to the part where everything Maya has built is about to come fully into the light. Part 5 is coming. And what Vanessa knows changes the entire story.